And welcome, John. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing absolutely wonderful.
That's great. Why so wonderful? It's a Monday. You shouldn't be this happy.
Are you kidding? My teenage son cooked dinner mostly hands off, so it was a good evening and it was
Oh,
good
wow.
food.
Yeah, what was it?
It's sticky Asian chicken or something like that. It was delicious, and rice.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah, my teenagers don't really cook food unless you count cereal. You know, which
No,
cereal can be a very nice breakfast or for dinner. You know.
my but when I met the kids, they were already pretty decent at cooking as for 5 or 6 year olds, and as they've gotten older, they go between where they want to cook and where we have to force them to learn to cook for themselves because they're moving out at some point and we ain't helping them no more. So
Yeah, no, I get
and
that.
like to
Yeah.
equip them to be successful.
Yeah, that's a tough job, isn't it?
It really, really is. I have had no lie, like the last 5 or 6 years being a full-time parent and just my youngest son is like me when I was a kid. So like my dad's told me this is exactly the same behavior I had to deal with. And I was like, well, I am so very sorry. So, but it's worth the trouble, but man, oh man, parenting is wild.
Yeah, it is. I've struggled recently with just being a parent, and it's not anybody's fault or anything like that. It's just a challenging job, you know, and
It's a job you don't have an instruction manual for.
No, not really. You're just kind of going by whatever your parents told you, and and they were winging it just like their parents were. So yeah.
I find throughout life, like I just continue realizing that I understand my parents way more now. Like it's profound. All the things my parents said were true. They were indeed very true.
I've heard this old joke that said something along the lines. I'm gonna screw it up for sure, but something along the lines of whenever I was younger, my parents were kind of dumb, but then whenever I got older, I realized that they got smarter, and it's only because you got older and you started realizing some things that they had to put up with. So
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, thanks for answering my siren call here. I promise not to steer us into any rocks or anything. But tell me a little bit about your upbringing, since we're talking about parents and kids and stuff like that, and a little bit about you reached out and you told me you were raised fundamental Baptist.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
I think my grandparents, who when I was younger, we weren't like a super religious household, but it was like if Sunday came around, we got up on time, we'd go to church, or if I was with my grandparents for the weekend, like they went to church. Like I was very familiar with the church that my grandparents grew me up in. But I didn't really pay much attention to it, other than they were telling me how the world was before I was around, so I didn't really know much better than to listen to what they told me. Terribly sorry.
That's okay.
But as I got older, I moved in and lived with my mom in another state, in Georgia, which is where I spent the rest of my childhood years. And we went to church with my aunt, and my uncle, and they were a fundamentalist Baptist church. And teenage angst aside, like I had a good time at that church. The term church hurt is completely foreign to me.
Yeah, me too.
But I have distinct memories of being told that the dinosaurs were not a real thing. They were just some kind of trick that was put to stumble us in our path to God, because that's not what the Bible said happened. So that definitely isn't what's real. That's a very distinct memory from my early teen years. which
So
everybody
you,
loves to tell me has to be fake. I wish something that dumb was fake.
you know,
Um,
you went even further. Rather than doing some sort of mental gymnastics to try to justify why there aren't dinosaurs in the Bible, which was frankly a very interesting question that my son posed to me during my deconstruction period.
mhm.
I was just kind of like,
Well,
I don't know. We'll
yeah,
find out the answer. You know.
yeah, and it's wild because since then, I've come to learn that the church, the general position is changed, where they want to try and say like evolution happened but God made it happen, or that dinosaurs were there but they just died off. And of course now they say the dinosaurs are in the Bible, and they have the description of behemoth and I forget what else, which are not.
Beast, dragon, if you're King James. Yeah. So there.
But I always love to tell them though, like, yeah, you say that, but if you went 100 years, before they found out what dinosaurs were and asked those Christians what those passages meant, they would not say that, because no one thought that until secular world found dinosaurs, which wasn't something the church did.
Yeah,
But
you want to talk about something really crazy? Is that I had saw somebody post on the internet months ago that George Washington didn't know that there were dinosaurs, and I was like, "What? That can't be true." And
no,
I
that
looked
sounds
it
about
up.
that. That
Yeah.
sounds more or less correct. We are we've already gotten off topic, so I'm just going to dive in.
Oh no 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 no
Um,
no! You got to understand there is no off topic. It'll all come out. It'll
it's
all come to the surface as it should be. So it's all
it's
good.
it's it's wild that, like, I mean, modern uh society, I guess, when we officially found dinosaurs, wasn't like the first time like humans had encountered the fossilized remains of things. Like, that's where like I'm sure different myths came from, because
Mm-hmm.
that's far more likely than any magical explanation, um,
Yeah.
which nobody likes to hear. But oh well.
Well, I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around time. I think.
It is.
You
It
know, I
is.
mean, for instance, if we were to say, well, George Washington didn't really know about dinosaurs, well, that was like 250 years ago, which seems like a long time. But then again, if you
It's really
calculate
not,
it in generations, it's really not that long ago.
dude.
And then, tack that on. So,
I had my great grandma passed away, I think less than 10 years ago, but she was in her 90s. And I love to
yeah.
like it drives me wild to think that she lived when there were no airplanes, and she saw us reach the moon in her lifetime. That
Yeah.
massive amount of progress.
Yeah. It's
And
crazy.
it's wild to see, because that's another thing creationists try to point out, is like that clearly, we couldn't have been around that long, because look at the progress we've made in the last couple hundred years. Why are we not much further? And it's like, you people don't realize the exponential rate at which technology progresses.
Yeah, that's
And
true. And yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, that was basically it. Just we spent a massively long portion of our history doing fuck all, because we couldn't write shit down. Once we
Mm-hmm.
started writing shit down, then things started to snowball, because you are able to, the things that don't die with you. The things get passed on to other people, so that they don't have to spend their whole life learning the very basics. They get taught the basics, and then they can spend their time building on that, which is the entire foundation of our educational system, or how it's supposed to be. Like, you end up, this is hyperbole because I'm a layman, but like I'm of the firm belief that when you exit high school, like the average person knows far more than most humans in history knew,
Oh, yeah. And
just
even
at
if
basic
you,
schooling.
yeah, I mean, not only that, but if you look at just economics in general, I mean, we live far better than any king in old
Yes.
times. I mean, just running water is
There,
is a pretty big improvement.
yeah, even one of
Electricity,
the oil barons, as rich as he was, didn't have electricity. He still did all his work by candlelight and oil lamp.
yeah, which is probably
Just,
healthier, honestly.
just
But
a That's just a like less than a century ago. I don't
Yeah.
remember what time frame that was because I am cursed with vague knowledge of things, not specifics. I'm terrible at remembering details, the specifics.
Well, I don't know if you're like me, but I mean, I do have some gaps in my knowledge because of faith, honestly.
Thank
You know,
Thankfully, I don't. I paid a lot of attention, especially in my teenage years during Bible classes and stuff, because I have generally always been of the mindset of if I have to do something and I literally cannot get out of it, and I'm being forced to pay attention, I might as well, fucking pay attention and learn shit. Which
uh-huh.
it, when I, before I was saved wasn't like as big of a deal. But after I got saved and baptized when I was like 13ish,
Okay.
like all of a sudden, like this was all super serious business. So it mattered a lot more. But even in school, I have always loved learning, which thankfully is why I don't believe anymore, is because there's too much that I know, um, that doesn't in any way reflect what the Bible should tell me the earth is like. And frankly, that's among one of many death blows in my case, because I can't narrow my deconstruction, I guess is the actual word, but I can't narrow my deciding not to believe anymore on any one thing that happened. It's just a billion unanswered questions that if they aren't answered, then I mean, I'll go with what I do know, which isn't God. Um, but so I spent a lot of my teen years learning. I still learned the secular knowledge because I went to a secular high school.
Uh-huh.
Um, but there was I held the two ideas together. That yeah, that's how they say it happened, but I know that's just a lie. Like the real truth is what God says happened. So like I can learn this, but like it's not real. It which was ironic. Um,
Oh, dude, I can really empathize with that because I did I kind of I feel the same way. You phrased it excellently because I felt like I held kind of two things in my head, and I didn't really know how to reconcile them, but I kind of felt like I'll find out the answer eventually to what the truth is, and of course, the truth
yeah.
being the Christian belief, and that's why as I was nearing the end of my deconstruction. Didn't realize I was heading toward deconversion, but
Mhm.
my son did ask me that one morning. He's like, "Dad, why are there no dinosaurs in the Bible?" And he's 10. He's a huge dinosaur buff. I thought kids were supposed to like grow out of the dinosaur thing, but he's decided to lean into it, and he can tell you anything about these things. And like we got to meet Forrest Alki, if you know who that is, and like we
Yes, I
started
do. That's
asking him
pretty
a bunch of
awesome.
questions. I mentioned that on another podcast too, and then like he was just rattling off things. I'm like, well, I mean, two minds here that you know they're well matched, but yeah, I always kind of felt like I'll find out the Christian answer, the Christian explanation eventually, but at the moment I just don't know. And
Mhm.
then you just kind of float through life, not really sure until you
Well,
start investigating.
yeah, and what's wild is I the wild thing is like to the normal person, I guess there was some question about which story was true. Like I obviously thought like the God one had to be the true one, but the question was still there, and I always ended it with, "Well, it doesn't matter in my day to day life. So even if I don't know the answer, I can trust God, and it's cool, and it's not going to affect my life." Like there's a lot of issues that um, people never look into because it never comes up in their day to day life. Like nobody really has to question what what's a good example? Shit. Just these questions don't come up in day to day life, so people don't question them. People don't spend a lot of time thinking about it necessarily.
Uh-huh.
Um, and on top of the fact that like I, the biggest struggle I have dealing with believers is every Christian has their own fucking personal God that they call the biblical God. Maybe it's based
Uh-huh.
on biblical scripture. Maybe it's based on some pastor who just is all, only talks about the happy parts of the Bible, and they don't read the Bible, so they don't know because they go to church on Sunday. That's good enough for them, right? There's cultural Christians. There's the really hardcore spend their
Mm-hmm.
life to Christ Christians. Like it runs the gamut, and all of them swear not only are they correct, but there's no way somebody could actually believe the Bible is literal. There's no way someone could believe in Christ but think that the whole Bible is metaphorical. Like, and in anywhere between those two.
There is a
Um,
conflict there between the literal and then the metaphorical. And, the question that I have whenever it comes to metaphorical things is always, well, what's the tool I can use to differentiate between
yeah,
literal and metaphorical? And don't tell me common sense, because I don't believe in that.
yeah. There's no such thing as common sense. It's not
No.
common.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, to you, it
um,
might seem rational, like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense to me that this is some sort of allegory, metaphor, whatever. That what's Noah's flood, right? The Great Flood. Well, that was just a story. Of course, that didn't really happen that way. But then you'll totally find people, and I do every
yeah,
single day, that
yes.
believe that
My
that's
church.
yeah, believe that it's absolutely true, and that it was, and that's ultimately that's kind of what broke me.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me a little bit more about this church that you went to
So
with your aunt.
I mean, it was a great church. Actually, I keep harassing my former youth pastor to try and have a conversation with me now,
Uh-huh.
because he's the one that this is the man that was there when I got saved. Like it was me and him that were having the conversation that led to my being born again, a new creature, washed in the blood, and all that. But I want to have a follow up conversation with him. I guess kind of a he brought me formally into the religion. I can give him my exit interview. Um,
Exit
but
interview,
he's
love it.
to be fair to him, like there are, regardless of how true you think the Bibles might be, like there are some Christians who do their absolute damnedest to live the way that they think God tells them to live, and are that actually do what they're supposed to, not just give lip service and act however they want. And
Mm-hmm.
my former youth pastor is one of those. Like he was an all around great guy to be around. I've never heard a bad word about him. He's gone on and he has like 7 fucking kids, which is bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, go forth and multiply, I guess.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean,
But he has a good life. Like I mean, if more Christians were like him, then there would be, so I could honestly reevaluate my position. But frankly, but my church was a good place to be. Teenage angst aside, I enjoyed being there. The teens I hung out with there were all cool people, aside from the homeschool ones. They were a little weird. Not bad people, just weird. Not well socialized. And the adults, I'm sure I would find them extremely stiff and pushy as an adult, but like they were caring adults. They were not terrible people. I had a good church.
yeah,
Um, and so I mean, my teen years were great. I was a believer. I don't know how else to put it. Like I thought
yeah.
all that was real. Like I know the Bible pretty well even now because of that time frame. Like, and then after my teen years, I had no goal in my life, so I ended up joining the army.
Mm-hmm.
It had its ups and downs, but leading towards my current position in life, like it gave me a chance to actually um, see more than even my own country.
Mm-hmm.
I've deployed a couple of times. I've interacted with Muslims in Iraq. I have interacted with Koreans and their weird ancestral belief system I don't quite understand. I've been to Germany where Christians people are religious there or just not religious, but nobody talks about it. The churches there are amazing. I wish my biggest regret in life is that I didn't travel while I could have in Germany for way cheaper than I would have to pay now.
Definitely.
But I spent that time really not. I didn't really go to church. I didn't have someone reminding me to go to church, and I would rather sleep. Unless it's dirt biking, I will sleep. I will pick sleeping in over just about anything.
Yeah.
So during that time frame, like I didn't really go to church, and I still believed, but I guess the Christian term is backslidden, you know. But I still generally believed. Like when it came up in my almost my friend groups, like I was a believer. Like the things I decided to put my morals behind were things that were informed because of my Christian beliefs. Like, so I was saying that I was backslidden at the time. I still believed, but it was just a period of time where I spent gathering more life experiences and interacting with people that weren't what I grew up around, and which leads me to my current mindset of I know very well that people of other religions have the exact same convictions as any Christian would claim, with the exact same justifications and the exact same stance of where they draw their beliefs from. And it was a life experience is a big portion of what led me to be able to let go of the things I used to believe. There's only so many of those questions that you can ask before you just there's no confidence left. Because no Christian can give you answers to these questions, because I ask these questions to this day, and I have always asked these questions, and never once have I gotten a satisfactory answer. I just used to think they were satisfactory.
Yeah. What's a good example?
Being told,
what's a good example of some questions that you've asked that you're like, well, where's the answer?
So like my current one, an easy one is well, how do we know that the way that our church professes what the Bible says to be true? Because I knew what Seventh-day Adventists were at the time. I knew what Catholics were at the time, and even back then, it was just you pray about it, and God will let you God will let you know that what you believe is true. And then they would also show me this is what this is what the Scripture says, and this is how we know it. And the church's view on history is extremely sketchy and way more confident than they deserve to be. But at the time, I didn't know any better, so it was cool. It made sense. These people were really confident, and I trusted them, so they couldn't be wrong. Why would they lie to me?
Yeah.
And I don't generally think many of them are lying. Not in the sense they are telling untrue information, but they're not lying in the sense that they are deceiving you knowingly.
Not intentionally.
A lot of these people really have drank the Kool-Aid, and they're all in. It's
well, first of all, before we go too much further, I do want to say thank you for your service in the military. Just say thank you and go on. That's what you're supposed to do.
No, I did not do a damn thing for this country.
That
is a can of worms.
As I sit here in my dungeon basement office, I look at a picture of my dad and a folded flag because that I got after he died, and so and it was important, and it was a thing that I wasn't willing to do, So
man,
I know it's tricky.
If I'd known what I was getting into, I might not have joined, but I didn't. And once you're in, you're in. But I wouldn't. But looking back, I would make different decisions. But I would not do it. I would have picked different job
because
choices.
you got to see different parts of the world, which is awesome. I mean, my
It was.
My wife, her dad he was career military, he retired, and they got to live in Germany whenever she was in their younger years, and tells great stories about cool things, and
I could tell you some awesome drinking stories from
yeah, I bet you
Germany,
could.
because that's mostly what I
Fuck
did.
yeah.
I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Um,
Isn't the
but
drinking age lower over there? Isn't it like 18 or something
yes,
like that? So
I
yeah, so
yes.
you're like a
So
very mature at that point.
I was yes, I was super, like when I graduated high school, I still am to this point, but I over my years I've learned that rules are made to be bent, and you can always ask for forgiveness later. But at the time, like I was very, I know the rules and they got to be followed, and I don't want to fuck up because like in the army, like it gets really serious really
Yeah.
quick. So I remember when I first came to Germany, I was flying with another private that was I'd gone to AIT with, and we were hanging out at the airport in Germany before we went to got moved towards where we did on in processing at, and they had a Subway there, and we went to get Subway, and they had beer because they sell beer, and it's a normal thing. And the guy's like, we're 18 and the drinking age is 18 here. Like, we can drink. And I was like, no, I don't know about the sound of that. Like, that sounds legit, but like, nobody in charge has told me we're cool yet. So, like, no.
Yeah.
But indeed, you can, at the time, I don't know if policies change, but they know they aren't going to keep soldiers from going off post and drinking. So, the drinking age is the German drinking age, and that is it. And it was awesome.
It kind of makes sense to me, but then again, I also, as an adult, that kind of got away from me a little bit during the pandemic. So I also kind of think that it's better to have some restrictions, but that's a tough call. Some people are more mature than others, so I really can't make a judgment call on that one.
I was in an infantry unit in Germany, and nobody drinks like they drink. But at least during that part of my life, I had a pretty healthy attitude, a pretty healthy relationship with alcohol. I didn't get into any real trouble when I drank, and it didn't affect my day-to-day life. Like, it was very recreational. But when I was in Germany, I did check off the alcoholism checkbox on my ETS list. But that wasn't because of anything other than the stress of being a leader in that particular work environment. Worst, Korea, the country, is amazing, but being in the army in Korea,
not so much.
Is not so great. No.
And like you said, though, like you got to visit these other places. And one of the things that gets, I've heard a lot, and I've said it a couple of times, is that, your religion is an accident of geography. Where
I have heard
where you're born, what you're surrounded by, the people that you trust that tell you to believe this because surely it's true. As you've probably seen when you go around the world, well, that changes.
It's cultural.
Yeah, it's very cultural.
It's purely cultural.
And so it makes you start to question things like, well, if this is cultural more than universal, then how do I know what the right one is? What you were talking about. Did some of those questions then come up as you visited places?
It mostly during the earlier period of my 20s, the questions were there, but I wasn't at a point in my life where I cared about much. I was still pretty aimless. The army gave me the direction I needed, and that was good enough for me. But it did come up later. But like the church has answers for that too. They're not satisfactory, but as a Baptist, like our job is to preach the word. Like we sent missions out to places because we had to make sure that these people heard of Jesus, because they knew what they listened to whatever pagan gods they had and thought were real, which from the Christian point of view is they're just worshiping demons.
Oh yeah, sure.
But the fact of the matter is, once you get down to it and you look into the actual histories of these things, like some of these religions were around a lot longer than Christianity. They are their own thing. They're not. There was no Tower of Babel event where man parted ways and we learned other languages and our cultures did what they did. Like that's not. None of that's the case. It's literally a matter of education.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned
because
the Tower of Babel, because I do still read, and I read with my daughter, and we talk about the stories. And I did note how odd the Tower of Babel was. Doing a reread now, looking at it with very different eyes, I thought, what a weird fucking story. It's like smack dab just dropped in the middle of two other stories, and it's like, well,
it's very poorly placed.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense, but it seems to have
it makes even less sense with the modern conception of God.
Yeah,
because to us, if you ask someone where heaven is, most people don't think heaven's like its own thing, like it's a different dimension. We're never going to find it in this dimension. Right. But that's not how the Jews saw things.
No, that is not how they saw
it. The Tower of Babel story makes sense because you can build a tower to the sky, and the sky was where they thought God was.
Right.
I annoyed my wife the other day because I think this is really clever, but there was a saying I saw, and it's to our ancestors, when we first started coming up with gods, we thought God was in other living creatures. So we went and we looked at the other living creatures, but we didn't find God there. So then we thought God was in nature. So we went and we looked at nature, and we never found God there. So then we thought God was in the faraway places, like up on the mountains. So eventually we went up on the mountains and we didn't find God there. Mm-hmm. And then so God must be in the clouds at that point. Well, eventually we also went to the clouds and there was no God there. And so on and so forth. And now, of course, God is behind the Big Bang, where conveniently we just can't look.
It is convenient.
And it's wild because like that story is not like, it lays out a progression, but it's not necessarily accurate to anything other than those concepts were their own individual religions. Mm-hmm. in various times and places throughout our history. And I am no anthropaleontologist or anything. I am extremely a layman, but I think I'm relatively well educated, and the actual history of our species is infinitely more interesting than any creation story that our ancestors also conveniently thought up, because they didn't know any better.
What have you found that you find particularly interesting? I have insights, but they're my own thoughts. But I want to hear what you have to say.
Because the fact that our ancestors were at some point not cavemen the way we our culture thinks of them, but we were a different species back then. Mm-hmm. We did the changes our species went through to become where we are now. At some point, like just tool using is one of the things that makes our species different. Not that it's unique, but our simple, the vast multitude of tools that we use obviously sets us apart from other tool using species. But that started because we found out we could take our ancestors found out they could take rocks and smash bones open and eat what was in the bones, which is a very nutrient dense mm-hmm. marrow. Yeah. And it took a long time to snowball, but that was the beginning of the snowball at some point in our history. And this isn't something that we speculate about. We have found the tools that some of our ancestors used to do this with. There's also another archaeological site that I found super interesting, because there's two different species of our ancestors in the same site, but one of the sets of bones appears to have been slaughtered and eaten because there's tool marks on the bones and the way they're strewn about. So it's wild to think that our ancestors, hunted each other. They were not cool with each other.
Wow.
But at some point, we went from that kind of behavior, we developed morality and became an actual social species to facilitate further tool usage and our own survival.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, we are doing our best to destroy the planet we live on. But we're doing it in comfort.
Oh yeah, it's very comfortable.
So,
it's sad,
but
right?
it's so wild to realize that long it is terribly sad, but it is what it is. Certainly a conversation for another time. But it's wild to see what the actual history of what we were is, and I can understand, as someone who is taught creationism, I know how it felt to have this stuff taught to me. And I think one of the barriers to a lot of people is, because I went through this understanding myself, is when you go through school, you're taught stuff, the very basics, but you're also taught the very basics out of date. But you're never encouraged. Most people don't ever go to learn more than what they learned in high school. So to them, that was, they stopped hearing about science and those kinds of topics at that level. So any discovery that was made that wasn't in their textbook never happened to these people. And again, what unless it's like their special interest or something, like what incentive do they have to go and look up the latest in abiogenesis? What need do they have to go and look up the latest in paleoarchaeology?
From the comfort, because we're so comfortable, we don't look up things, or
no? I think it's just I think it's a combination of a lot of things. People are busy. People want to spend their downtime doing things that they enjoy, which may not be learning. A lot of people don't enjoy learning, which I don't fault them necessarily. It's when those people go and say and spout off their half-assed ideas and won't listen to people who do know better. But again, separate topic.
I mean, even if you don't know better, can we not have a conversation about it? I mean, let's talk about what you know.
No, a lot of people really can't. I've had this conversation with my boss recently, because because she was asking. We've talked about my online activities as a recreational talk at work, and she asked me what I thought. What would be the percentage of people who seem to have an honest conversation that I interact with? And like, honestly, it would be less than 10%, are there to have an honest conversation where we don't we aren't going to agree. I can have a conversation and be cool with not agreeing. But I can still listen to the other person and go, well, I heard you and I made sure I understand you correctly. And frankly, none of this is very compelling. And they listen to the things I have to say. And they can either say, some of them think that I bring up some interesting points that's worth talking about, and some of them just it washes off their back. But we don't go away from having hard feelings. We don't feel that the other person was condescending to each other, which Christians are very good at. There was no,
to be fair.
I will pray for you. There's no, I'll pray for you. There's no, well, you're just deluded.
Yeah.
Most of the people I interact with, they have what they've been taught, and they're not going to let some random stranger, no matter how informed that person claims to be or what they claim their credentials are or what they cite, they couldn't possibly be correct because they don't agree with me. And some of that's hyperbole, I'm sure, but
I think having a conversation is good. Even if you're not going to get to common ground, you're still going to learn maybe something, hopefully, and I like learning new little things that I didn't know until I talked to somebody else, and then they shared something with me. Like, you've already shared something with me that I'm going to go look up later. But the whole South Korea thing and like whatever their religious beliefs are, I'm interested to know more about that. But yeah, I think having a conversation is far better than trying to be necessarily persuasive.
It is. So because I talk online a lot, it always comes up, well, at least a few times a week, where these people ask, well, if it's not real, why do you care? Why have this conversation if it's not real to you? And I try to reiterate the response of, either it's important because you guys have real beliefs that affect real world politics and such, but also I am obviously trying to persuade them, but ultimately they are not the audience. The audience is the people who are going to come along and see that conversation and see who actually is, backing up the things that they say, who is actually has a cohesive line of thought, who is actually acting out their beliefs, and the way that they claim that they want to act. Um, because I know ultimately that's what informed my source of information, was interacting with other people and seeing who's behaving the way that they're behaving.
One thing we were talking about was earlier, you had talked about how you just kind of had like a billion unanswered questions. And I kind of felt like that's kind of like how you were just saying about how that, these discussions are more for the other people that might come across and find it, because it's not like getting saved. Where you have a moment, where you have a moment and you say the sinner's prayer, and maybe you've read the Romans Road and somebody walked you through that, and then you stand before everybody and says, well,
it's a very emotional time.
It is, yeah, but
it's
to become one, but to deconstruct is different. It's a
different feeling.
million things. So many little questions.
Less pleasant too.
Yeah. How was that for you?
It was a very slow period. Funny enough, so I'd been a backslidden Christian for a long time, but generally, like, I had normal, what I would have considered Judeo-Christian views. Like, if it were, push came to shove, like, I might not live it, but I know what I should be living.
Yeah.
But I married, for the third time, I married my current wife, who is a Mormon. And we come to the conclusion that, we're not a super religious couple, but like, we understand what our beliefs are. And then I started getting into, learning about what flat earth was, and not in the way that I believed it, but just being bewildered that it was a thing.
Yeah.
But that really kickstarted me to wanting to learn more about, up-to-date science topics and stuff, because, like, I'd never really actually given thought to how do I actually know that the Earth is a globe, but these people show you ways that you can know and ways you can test yourself. And I started doing more research into science topics, and eventually it gets around to explaining, having to learn evolution, because that's what the topic was, or that's what somebody was talking about. And a lot of flat earthers are religious, which is a confluence of several bad things, but religion plays a big part of it, in that it primes you to believe things without evidence. But through all that, I started learning that the things that I thought were true weren't actually true, necessarily. There were other answers that seemed very likely. And over the course of probably 2 or 3 years, more of that stuff came up. I learned more stuff. I looked more into it and found out that yes, like, these things are true. These are far more plausible than any tale that I've been told or previously believed. And eventually I had to have a conversation with my wife where it took a lot of reassurance, because she's convinced that an atheist is just going to tell her that she's stupid for believing what she believes and leave her. But like, having to come to the conversation where my beliefs haven't changed. Like, I have all the same morals. I just have non-religious reasons for understanding those things to be true.
Right.
And having to express to my wife that, like, this part of me has changed, but it's no way changes who I am. Which took a lot for me to realize. Like, there was a lot of times where I had thoughts of, there's that inkling feeling of, what if I'm
Mm-hmm.
wrong and the whole Pascal's wager thing is true.
Right, but Pascal's
But
wager, you have to say, well,
it's bad
yeah,
math. It's bad
what
math.
if I'm wrong on the religion? What if?
It's
I mean, the funny.
I mean, I have an easy answer to that, though. I've put enough thought into it that it's a matter of understanding myself. Like, if people can interact with me and call me a liar all they want, but the fact of the matter is I have given God his chances. I have asked him. I have done the things he expected me to do. I knew the promises that he made to me through his text, the things I was supposed to feel, the things I was supposed to believe,
Mm-hmm.
the things that were supposed to happen in life, and not in the sense that oh, God's just going to give you amazing things in life. Not that.
Yeah.
The feeling of conviction, the being reassured by his presence, the knowing that I've picked the right thing because God, the Holy Spirit is in me and lets me know. Like, none of that shit happened.
Mm-hmm.
I prayed to God that, like, hey, let me know, like work the Holy Spirit in me and let me know what I'm doing wrong. Like, I was willing and ready to fix the problem, um, because I could be wrong. And God, if you're there, like, just let me know. And absolutely nothing for 2 decades, on and off. And at this point, like, if by some cosmic miscarriage of justice there is a God and it is the biblical God, I am I may end up in hell. I may end up with whatever version of annihilation that particular Christian thinks is going to happen. But the fact of the matter is I've tried, and if God's punishing me, then I'm suffering for his failure,
Ah,
not
shit,
mine.
dude. I mean, so right
Um,
on. And as you just alluded to, Christians can't even decide what they think about hell, let alone God. I mean, is it eternal
no,
torment forever? Is it torment for a time and then you're completely annihilated? Is it torment
is
for?
it straight
Right?
annihilation?
Yeah.
Is it Sheol, like what the Jews
Right.
believed? Like, there's count, like, all right, you can get most Christians to agree on one thing, maybe two. Jesus was a person and Jesus was resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it's anyone's
It's
game.
anyone's game.
Like, I you and you can even show these people that what they in particular believe has no basis in the Bible, and they don't care. It's what was taught at their church. That is the truth. If you're telling them something different, you're the one that's lying somehow. You're the one that doesn't have the magic eyes to read the script properly. You're the one that's like the devil. You can quote scripture, but you're doing it for evil somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Even the devil
and
knows
forget
scripture. Um,
the fact that,
right?
look, I have taken some college classes for welding, and some of the classes weren't welding related, and I had to learn a lot about communication from a business class that I was forced to take that I didn't want to
Yeah.
take. But I have a firmer understanding of how to communicate properly, apparently, than the biblical God. There's one unclear message with dodgy source. It's not very clear. There's no feedback to get corrections through. Like, it's not the work of an all-knowing being, is all I'm saying.
It seems a little sketch,
And
or as my son would say, seems sus.
it does seem sus. That is what the kids say. Um, and again, like, it's just one of those things that it's those things that add up. And I don't usually I don't think when I'm engaging with Christians, it is usually not to change their mind, because you're not going to. There was no atheist that I talked to when I was a believer
Mm.
that I gave any real credibility to. Um, and, but the information was true whether I believed it or not, and it was still said. And like I said earlier, my audience is not the person I'm usually talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Or most, like, there's some days where I'm not actually talking to have a decent conversation. It's cathartic sometimes to to fight back against the dumb shit that I used to see myself say, and I realize now that it is just completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
All the apologetics are nonsense. All the really super witty comments really don't hold up to any real thought. Sometimes it's cathartic to have those conversations and just get a rise out of them.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make me a great
Well,
person, but
I mean, it goes that way on all
it's
sides, right?
therapy.
Because, whenever they get mad and they say something like, "Well, you'll find out one day," when it's like, okay, well,
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
is that a
and
selling point for you? Because it sounds like you just feel like you're higher than, you just feel like you're so justified in being right. You're like, well, I'm going to get this zinger in, and that'll show him. And I mean, that's
yeah,
not
and
very convincing.
it's not convincing. And then they can say that I'm not a great person and I must be just, they don't know me for
Mm-hmm.
starters, but they can say that I'm being a dick to them for no reason. And you know what? Cool. No argument. Probably I am. But like, I'm a human. I'm allowed to make mistakes, and the risk here is beyond acceptable. Um, but you think that your God has commanded you to act a certain way, no matter what. Always be ready to teach. Always be an example to Christ. Show the world that there's something special and different about you because that's Christ in you. You believe that, and you still act like this, which leads me to think that either there is nobody washed in the spirit of blood, there is no Holy Ghost inside of you letting you know what you should be doing to make God happy, or nagging at you to act more godly, or turn away from your sin, or I don't even remember what the other option was going to be, but like that doesn't, and then like none of the things you say are convincing me that Jesus is the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, I get it. You can call me an ass, but I'm not disobeying the God that I think is going to spank me in eternity, spank me for all of eternity for the naughtiness that I do. But you do, which is why you should be acting different, and you just can't seem to find it in you. And it does lead to some fun. There's a lot of scripture you can toss those people that way to remind them, if they're smart, that they are acting in a way they shouldn't be, or that the fruits of their salvation are rotten and stinky.
Yeah.
But even then, they will again, the whole Satan can quote scripture thing that away. But the fact of the matter is that if their claims about God were true, they wouldn't be acting that way. And every religion does that.
Yeah.
Muslims are really fun to talk to when you get them all up in their
Oh,
feelings, because they will tell you have a potty mouth while having a potty mouth. But Buddhists don't do that. Buddhists seem pretty chill. I don't even think I've ever argued with a
they're
Buddhist.
pretty chill. There
But
is some spiritual aspect to it, but you don't. But,
I don't do philosophy
yeah,
though.
so I mean, it's not like, it's not as heavy as it is with Christianity. And by the way, you've rattled out so much, you've thrown out so much Christianese that I recognize, that I'm like, oh yeah, he was definitely raised Baptist. So
Yes, yes, and it's funny, dude. So my wife, when I lecture my kids a lot, and my wife there's a whole behavior she notices. I'm very preachy. I'm like, and then I've interacted with other people on threads, and I've been accused of being preachy, which I guess is it's what's learned.
Did you ever have to go up to somebody in a mall and evangelize to them on the spot?
No,
No.
thank God, no.
Okay, so
I
just
did
me
that.
then.
I
Got
think
it.
no, it's just you. I didn't ever really do any evangelizing like that. When I was in my younger 20s, I did. I wouldn't say it was online evangelizing, but like, I would talk to people about this stuff and tell them how, what it was and all that. But I don't think I wouldn't have it. I mean, it was evangelizing, I guess, but I wasn't formally like evangelizing. I don't know how. But no, I didn't ever have to do any mission work or anything. Um, but and my wife hasn't either, because Mormon missions are something
Yeah.
else. I have to be nice to the Mormons, out of respect for my wife. Because they come over often and they're great. And the wild thing is they're great people.
Yeah.
As wacky as Mormon beliefs are when you get down into the details, like generally they're a little weird, but like they're good people.
The people are generally, yeah, I would totally agree with that. Yeah, I haven't met. I really can't think of any Mormon that I met that after I was done with the conversation, I thought, man, what a dick. No, nothing like that. They're generally pretty nice.
Them and Jehovah's Witnesses are the most kind, passive-aggressive people you will ever interact with, stereotypically speaking. Like the Mormons that I deal with, they don't, like the ones that my wife interacts with know that I'm not a believer and they don't make a big deal of anything. And I also don't give a lot of pushback because I don't need to. I don't, outside of threads, I really don't talk about religion a whole lot unless I know the person wants to have the conversation.
Yeah, well, it's like you were talking about the youth pastor, right? And about how you kind of wish that you could have that conversation. And I feel the same way with other people that were in my life that I would like to have that conversation, but they don't really want to have that conversation, or and I find that sad, really.
My youth pastor is eager to have the conversation, but like I said, the man has 7 kids. He's
busy.
Doing mission work.
Yeah.
God knows what else. Mm-hmm. So like, I get it. He's busy. If he gets to it, cool. If not, I'm not going to cry. Mm-hmm. But it is a conversation I would love to have because I know this man believes what he believes. And I know enough about the Bible now. Like I know some conversations I want to have. If not, I'm torn. Because like I don't seek to tear down anyone's belief in God, honestly, because like what you do inside your head, I really don't care about. If it inspires you to be a better person, cool. My big problem comes when people want other people to act how their religion tells them to act, or how whether they're a believer or not, or when they deny very real science because it doesn't match with what their religion teaches. Mm-hmm. Like that's where I start to have problems because I'm autistic as fuck. You don't lie around me because if I know that you're lying, we have a problem and I'm going to tell you you're wrong and then we're going to argue because I know I'm not wrong and I have citations to prove it and you don't. And when they tell me that they are still insist that they're right, then they're dumb. But I know enough about the Bible now that I can have some conversations. Like, I don't want to tear down my youth pastor's belief, but it would be nice if he ended up being like a person that doesn't that takes the Bible fully metaphor and is able to go through life at least understanding the world he lives in. Mm-hmm. That would be great to me. I think that would be a great thing. That would be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that would be a good step.
And honestly, like being able to show him that you can believe in a God, but understanding that biblical God is not who you think he is, it would be enough. Like that would, and biblical God is not the things that they say that he is, which is wild. I don't know how to, and I guess I say I don't understand, but I do understand how people can read the whole Bible and still think that God is just. It's because you ignore a bunch of shit. And the stuff that you don't ignore, just the mysterious, well, I know God's good, so God had a good reason to do it. I don't have to understand it because he's God. Yeah. That's such lazy thinking.
I think that there's ignoring, and then there's also maybe just reading too fast, maybe not slowing down enough and really kind of chewing on what you're reading, because it is kind of clunky. I mean, honestly, for a all-powerful, omnipotent being, like the prose is shit. And so, so I'm like, why is this repeated so many times? Or why, this,
Yeah. And it comes down to like the story I love to point out to people is the story of David raping Bathsheba. Mm. Some people say it was adultery. Either way, it was a sin. But if you're into victim blaming, it's just adultery. But when King David raped Bathsheba, God specifically told King David, like it's a very clear words of God saying that he will, from the house of David, bring this punishment. What David did in secret, he will do in public. It's a very clear statement of what God is going to make happen. And then like a chapter or two later, then Absalom comes and rapes David's wives.
Yes. Second
And,
Samuel.
and so, yeah, someone in his family comes and does the thing in public that David did in secret, just like God said would happen. And when you tell people that story, no God believer is going to take it as it's written, because as it's written is extremely clear.
Yeah.
David did a thing. God said he was going to punish innocent people to punish David. And then innocent people took the punishment for David. That's not in any way justice. That is a Bronze Age character doing what Bronze Age men thought was justice.
Right.
You take the man's property and destroy it. That's the punishment to the man. He doesn't have that property anymore.
Right.
Women were property.
Women were property.
Your sons were effectively property.
Yeah.
But Christians will say, "Oh, well, God was predicting that would happen because God knows everything. So he knew that David fucked up, and he knew that this was going to happen. So he told David that this was his punishment." Well, that doesn't fly, because God commands specifically, "I will do these things to you, David."
Yes.
Not "these will happen to you, David."
And for anyone who wants to look this up, for those playing along at home, yes, Second Samuel 12 is where the Lord says, "I will do this from your own household." And then in 2 Samuel 16, like you said, a few chapters later, that's where it describes how David's wives were raped in broad daylight. So fun.
Yep. And then I think one of the other apologetics is, well, that's just describing the wicked things that happened in that time. Well, that's cool, but that's not what happened. Because you believe that God is real and God told you what he said in his word, and that's not the story he told. So, like, all these apologetics that they come up with, they just fly in the face of what they think is the actual word of God, which I can quote as this piece of fiction. I can read it and understand that these are characters. And I know that what I'm reading isn't true, but I know that what you think it is that you think it's true, but you're not reading it as it's written. You're adding stuff that's not there. You are calling God a liar, this God that you think can't lie, this God who says he can't lie, this God who says he doesn't change. Like, there could be a God, but through just reading the Bible and knowing about reality, you can definitively say whatever God could exist that is all good and all powerful, it is not the biblical God. By the simple fact of God is the Bible characterizes this character. He's not unknowable. He explains himself to us. He's not, his ways aren't unknowable. He explains all what he expects from us. He explains how he interacts with the world. He explains all of this to us through what people allege is his only communication to his creation.
Yeah.
So it's the fact, like, it's just all these apologetics come down to actually just reading your Bible for what it is and what you think it is, and stop making stuff up. I do
feel like that a lot of what I see of modern, and I mean younger kids, throwing out apologetics crap is that I think they only read the apologetics books and they don't read the actual Bible. I mean, I could be wrong on that one, but it kind of feels that way. I'm like, okay, like, why are you throwing out the same apologetics?
There's a lot of people who do not read the Bible.
I mean, can you blame them?
Or if they read the Bible, they only read certain parts of it. There are so many Christians that think the New Testament doesn't apply to them because they will listen to Paul over the literal words of Jesus and biblical God himself.
That's a whole other discussion on the difference between Christianity and Pollyanity.
Well, and of course they justify it by saying that, well, Paul was the speaker for God, so God was able to continue giving his revelations. Well, that's cool, except biblical God says he's not changing like half a dozen times. So it's a little weird that this unchanging God changes his mind ever. And then it's just, if you take the Bible at its word and try and look at any apologetics argument, they don't stand up, even to an internal critique, which is a wild thing to explain to a believer. because they are unable to differentiate sometimes between what they believe and putting themselves in the shoes of somebody they don't believe and trying to understand
Right.
what's someone else's point of view,
Yeah.
which as a Christian I can do because I know what it meant to believe that. I know what their beliefs are. I know what their beliefs could be. I've done it. I've been there, and I am truly an outsider looking in, having been inside as well.
Right.
And it's even if in an internal critique, a lot of these arguments don't stand up.
No.
You have to make up a lot of you have to add a lot of stuff that your biblical text doesn't say, or ignore stuff that it actually says, just for the sake of walking away holding that belief still.
Yeah, it's not terribly different from Star Wars, actually. And because, and if you have the first original trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6, right? And, the Force is this thing that surrounds all of us and blah, blah, blah. And then, Lucas comes along and makes the first, episodes 1, 2, and 3. And then they're talking about like a midichlorian count. And like, wow, it's really high in this one. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm all confused, because Han Solo, he says, nobody cares about your hokey old religion. And then I'm like, well, what is it? Is this a religion or is this a biological thing? Because now I'm all confused. And then they're like, well, wait, now you start doing mental gymnastics to like make that story work, and it's not even a real story, like, or you know what I mean? Not, it has no claims to truth. It's like it's a fictional story, but now we gotta sew up some plot holes here just for the fans, so that way they feel better.
And it's wild because a lot of Christians will brush this off because they don't like it, but you can easily compare what the Bible is to what Lord of the Rings is. Like the Lord of the Rings, the guy made up his own languages for this thing. He created an entire creation myth. Like there's a lot, like he put, I mean, it's an impressive work of art. It is quite thorough as a piece of literature. Like the things that the worldview, you can understand the worldview that from reading the book, and then go and learn about all the what is the historical mythological beginnings of that story. Like where did these cultures come from? Why do these cultures act this way? Where did these where did the different races come from and why? Like the Bible is the same thing.
I'll have to
it's just as fictional, but people are taught that it's real and choose to think that it's real because however they choose to have faulty evidence weighing. But it's the same thing. Like all that stuff is fictional, and it is all supposed to be internally consistent, but being a fictional work that has compiled over dozens of years from 2 different religions and countless cultures and countless fan fictions. Thank you, Catholics and Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists and Jehovah's Witnesses. You end up with a wide variety of a fictional mythos. And none of them agree with each other, but they will all tell you they each all know they have the universal truth, but and all the other Christians just got it wrong. But when they agree with them, the right ones, all will be well in the world.
It's gonna be
but they won't ever agree.
It's gonna be a small attendance party in heaven then, if that's the case, because I mean everybody disagrees on what
Indeed.
So, well, what's life like now? Kind of get as close to kind of wrapping things up. When would you say that you officially said I'm out? Like this is done. Like,
probably 6 months to a year ago, roughly.
Yeah, okay, similar to me. Then I'm a year out. So,
and I've brought this up to my wife recently because I think one of the things that upset me the most about not having the belief in God that I have any longer was like I had this grand expectation in my life that I had this list of questions that I would never ever know the answer to, that one day I'd be able to ask God and actually get the answers to. Like what did actually my pets ever actually really think of me? Like, did I ever have their personality correct?
Yeah.
Like, what did they think of the world?
Those are good questions.
Like, what really is? I have some great questions. Like, what really is like? help me see all the stuff I won't be able to see in my lifetime. Like, see, because we're stuck on this planet hopelessly,
Mm-hmm.
barring a fundamental new understanding of physics. There is so much of this galaxy that our species will never ever see, much less physically interact with. Like that stuff will probably remain a mystery to me forever. Um, and you know, having to let go of that, well, that sucked.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the worst part of it, I guess, because now to me those questions are going to likely remain unanswered forever, and it makes it even worse because as I've come to new understandings of the world around me, especially when it comes to consciousness, like I fully understand that my pets do have some, like they're not smart like toddlers are smart, and they may not like communicate in a way that I would understand as a human, because I'm not a dog,
Right.
but they are definitely conscious beings at some level. There's some level of intelligence there because that's how it starts. That's how our ancestors
Yeah.
were. Um, and all animals, like I'm not a vegan, like I'm not going to be some hippie. I'm still going to go enjoy hunting coyotes, but the fact of the matter is, like I have a far greater appreciation for the world, understanding it as it actually is, and the amazingness that it actually encompasses over the stiff and very archaic religious worldview,
Mm-hmm.
which is still stuck at like a Bronze Age understanding of the world, which is so fucking sad. That's the saddest part about seeing religious people is the world, the reality is far more amazing than shit we made up.
Yeah. I
Um,
agree. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, there were little things for me, like what. So we have cats. I didn't grow up with animals. Not really as pets anyway. I didn't have any pets except for a chicken. But that's a long story. I don't want to get into it anyway. But 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 no, I didn't really have pets. And then my kids during the pandemic, they're like, well, we would like a cat, and now we have 3 cats. So you see how that worked out.
I
But
love cats,
but
man.
I was watching one of the cats like kind of just walk around my legs one night, and just kind of swirling around me. And from my vantage point, I looked down and I thought, they kind of look like a snake in a way from my vantage point. And then I was still doing some questioning, still trying to learn about evolution and things of that nature. And so I go online and I just punch in the question, do snakes and cats share a common ancestor? And sure as shit, they do. And I was like, holy fucking shit, man, that's awesome. So there's, somewhere along the line, there was some tweaks that happened over long periods of time. And then we get snakes and cats, and that's so
I
cool.
It is amazing. Evolution is, I mean, I have a layman's understand. I have better than most layman's understanding of it. I'd like to think, but just the amazingness of what it is capable of doing. And Christians can complain that time is some magical god or something, but it's not. It's just the time for things to happen,
Yeah.
and all that is chemicals. Like as amazing as humans are, as amazing as animals are, like all biology is just really complicated chemistry. And look what, I absolutely love cats. Me and my wife, every year foster
Mm-hmm.
kittens, um, on top of 2 dogs and currently 1 cat. And every cat has their own individual personality.
Yes.
They are. I'm sad that I don't get to grow up with. I don't get to see these cats grow up, so I don't get to see how they get when they get
Mm-hmm.
older. Cats have puberty. Cats, their personality changes as they get
Mm-hmm.
old, and they're in not having a god around doesn't make that any less
No.
special. Life is still pretty fucking awesome. It is still absolutely amazing that, yeah, the odds of life happening, they probably were slim, but guess what? It happened, and it's fucking awesome.
Yep.
Um, and the fact that it's a cosmic accident makes it even more amazing and more appreciable. Like no, nothing. Losing God hasn't changed it hasn't made life unenjoyable. It's done basically the
Yeah.
opposite.
It,
It
it's been the same for
I've
me.
just that's Yeah, deciding my own purpose is far more freeing especially the fact that it's just as profound as it was when I thought that what I was doing was because some cosmic God loved me specifically out of all the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I losing that didn't change anything for me really,
No.
which again should have happened. Like if I should have a gaping hole in my chest from losing this God belief from what I used to think. And the fact of the matter is that didn't none of that ever happened.
Yeah.
There's no nihilism here.
No, I had way more nihilism before before the start. I mean, like right before the start of the end of the deconstruction process. So, I mean, I would say that I asked some questions just generally over long periods of time. But then whenever it kind of like started in full, like right before that, I was probably the most nihilist that I could possibly be. Just because I'm like, if the point is that we're just doing all this for the afterlife, then what the fuck am I doing here? Like this, I mean, it would almost make more sense to do stupid shit and try to just die. I mean,
Yeah. Like honestly, if you interpret, depending on how you decide to interpret God's all-knowing nature,
mm-hmm.
either this is just a complete ruse because he created all of us. He knew what we were going to do before he even did that. None of us had to suffer. He could have just created the ones that passed this. He knew we were going to pass this test and been done with it.
Yeah.
Like an all-knowing, all-powerful God, unless he's just a dick, wouldn't act the way biblical God would act, and wouldn't have made the world the way it is today.
Oh man,
there's just too much senseless violence. There's too much senseless suffering. Natural disasters don't need to happen. Like
nope.
It is not even a matter of wanting God to be a magic wizard that fulfills all of my wishes and makes me shit gold.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking at reality and being honest with yourself. Like you don't have to make excuses for an all-powerful God.
Right.
If he wanted to make things good, he would have. He doesn't need all these pissing contests.
Well, and if he's an all-powerful God, like really powerful, like the most powerful, if he was evil, would you have the capability to understand that?
You wouldn't.
No.
You wouldn't. Right. There's I know we're trying to wrap up here, but there's the whole Satan's just there to tempt you and all that. Like an all power. Oh, God damn it! I'm too high. I don't know what I was going to go with that.
Hey, it's all right. His kill count is very low in the Bible, so I mean, it really compared to God, I don't know. To me, that just says you should probably ask more questions about what you're believing in. But that's just me, and that's how I got here, and sounds like that's how you got here, and here we are together. So well, I feel like we're probably going to have to talk about some more shit in the future, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
right?
I'm down. I wanted to take some notes to talk about specific things, which I squeezed some of them in, but I didn't bother actually doing that. But I don't consider myself a talkative person, but it's nice to have these conversations every now and then, and not even as an echo chamber, just being able to bounce my ideas off of somebody else and refine my own beliefs as things go.
I understand that.
Is always nice.
It is nice to find people, and I hope you can find some sort of group, maybe locally, where you're at, to maybe bounce some things off. But otherwise, I feel sorry for your wife. She's just going to have to hear it. That's just how it works.
Yeah. If only she knew how autistic I was when she married me.
I don't think that has anything to do with it. You're just human. You had an experience, and you want to share about it, and kind of still hash it out a little bit, because there's plenty of lingering questions that still happen even after you reach unbelief. One of mine, big one, is how the fuck did I believe that? Whatever that is. It could be anything like resurrection or healing or the Tower of Babel. It doesn't matter. You kind of look back and go, I am perplexed that I believed this for so long, and how come I held on to it for so long? And
I mean, my off the cuff response, and this isn't an insult, but simply ignorance, not knowing
sure,
better.
no, I know.
And
I know the word ignorant means just
you can't,
uninformed. So some
yeah,
people don't.
you can't really blame. Some people think it's an insult, and it could be, but simply being uninformed and having incorrect beliefs, and learning that there's something, learning what that is wrong. People seem to think it's admitting you were wrong is a painful act for some people, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
Learning is
it
important.
is. So, oh well, man, this has been great. Thanks for chatting with me tonight. I mean, I've recorded these sessions at different times, morning, afternoon, and this is my first evening session. But I'm a night owl, so you're getting me at my peak. You know,
I am as well. I
yeah.
am forced to live during the day.
Yeah, I know. What are you going to do, right? So, all right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
I'm sure we
Okay.
will. I'll be
Okay.
around.
Thanks.